Hello and welcome to the summary of the first episode of Hyperefficient Startups. We're going to cover some things that we figured out or did in the episode 1 that happened live as per tradition that we're creating. So first things first, we stream, we go live, we record our screens. We don't want the previews to leak our secrets. So to avoid that, on Windows, you can go to Computer HQ Current, Software Microsoft Windows Current Version Explorer, then create a dword value, call it Alt-Tab Settings, and put 1 into it, and then restart your Explorer by pressing Ctrl-Shift-Escape, sorting by name, finding here Windows Explorer, and Windows processes is going to be here, killing it, and then clicking File, Run New Task Explorer exe, and this way you get this fancy Windows 98 XP style alt tabbing. The other thing that we have learned is what the fuck is CommonJS? What the fuck is ESM? To be honest, we didn't really learn what CommonJS is. We just figured that it's old and it gets deprecated. The reason why we had to figure it out, I mean, we're not a computer science or whatever, we're not a software engineering podcast here. We are a startup podcast, right? So we only touch tech that we need to understand to build cool stuff, to build innovative stuff in our case. And the reason for that is that Vite says, okay, we're deprecating CommonJS, right? And when you see something like that, and you have the sustainability mentality saying, okay, like whatever we write, whichever code we write, whatever solutions we make, we want this stuff to be sustainable. We want this stuff to serve 2, 3, 5 years, right? When you see a deprecation notice, is a huge red flag that you probably shouldn't do that thing that you're doing currently. And we were doing tailwind with CommonJS, and this is the rabbit hole that we have to explore right now: how to make tailwind work with ESM. And to do that, we first need to understand what is ESM, what is CommonJS, blah, blah, blah. And there is this misconception that I had, is that CommonJS and ESM were like developed in parallel. But as far as I understand now, after research during the episode, the live episode, as far as I understand, CommonJS is kind of like an ad hoc solution that came before ESM, and then ECMAScript committee, or whoever is in charge of ECMAScript, or also known as JavaScript, got together and they were like, you know what, guys, CommonJS is cute, but we sometimes need to, I don't know, for example, on backend, make a module that depends on a database connection, right? We want to make sure that we have a database connection before the code of a module starts evaluating for whatever reason. And with CommonJS, you can't have this sort of like promise on the top level. At least what I understand for sure is that you can't have it using async await keywords, right? And as far as I understand, again, from my research, which took me probably around 10-15 minutes, ECMAScript is just ESM ECMAScript modules is just a standard that is principled. It's not ad hoc, and it allows for this idea of saying, okay, like your module can be an asynchronous entity. You can model resources. You can model dependencies on resources in your modules, and you can actually call await. Well, I mean, it means that you can call await as you at the top level, right? And this is what ESM does. I know that's not a definition of what ESM is, but this is what it does, and it's also more modern, and these are reasons why Vite is deprecating it. Sorry, why Vite is deprecating CommonJS, and this is the reason for us to kind of shove everything into ESM world, which is great. To enable ESM, you have to go to package.json and write type module. No comment. And that's it, right? and we are now aiming for everything to be ESM. Another important thing is that you can wrap CommonJS modules into some wrapper. Don't know how yet. We didn't spend that much time. We just spent 1 hour working it out. We'll figure it out if we need it while we're working with integrating Tailwind or reintegrating Tailwind into our code base. But you can, in theory, wrap CommonJS modules and adopt them to be ESM modules, but not the other way around, obviously, right? Because completely different capabilities, or ESM is more powerful than CommonJS. And finally, what we figured out is we started figuring out how to install Tailwind. And we got a theoretical question, right? The official documentation of Tailwind, they say install Tailwind latest, install PostCSS, install Autoprefixer. And I was like, every year I learn these things, right? I learn what they are, right? And I keep forgetting. So now this time I was like, yeah, this is gonna be different. I will put it in our Zulip, which, by the way, you're welcome to join. You can contact me. I'm not sending out the invites to just anyone, but you can contact me. We can have a chat, and if I feel like I want you to participate in our tight-knit community, then I will of course invite you there. All right. So in terms of PostCSS and Autoprefixer, I figured, okay, I'll just make a topic in Zulip, but it's gonna be at least discoverable, right? Instead of going to websites and trying to figure out a very weird language written words by JavaScript developers, and I love JavaScript developers, but they are reinventing computer science. They just speak their own language, which is okay, but a bit difficult. It's not their problem, right? It's my problem to understand. It's hard for me to understand what they say, right? So yeah, I made this topic, and basically here I say that autoprefixer is just a mathematical function. You give it a string, it returns you an array of strings, and it also returns you, and it basically tells you, like, okay, like if you had something attached to the string under its key, like for example in CSS AST, then it'll tell you, okay, well, duplicate this thing, whatever is attached to this string, to all of this elements in the array you return. So for example, if you have some rule, CSS rule for full screen, right? Then you will just write full screen, and now the prefixer will be smart enough to say, okay, well, it's not an actual CSS or rather this CSS property is not yet implemented out of the box in the browsers. You have to be specific and have to write like WebKit full screen, right? To apply something only when the system is in the full screen mode. And then you click a button, like you run out a prefixer, and it spits out this kind of duplicated CSS, which means that you just have to write less boilerplate. And then PostCSS is kind of like this amalgamation of things inside of which there are all the bells and whistles that make it nice to use CSS. They think, or their architecture claims to be modular, which means that you can write plugins for PostCSS. So let's say you are like a really advanced CSS user, and you want to have, and something is annoying you, or you want to optimize something. You can write a PostCSS plugin, integrate it into your PostCSS config, and basically what it will do, it will parse CSS into AST, and then it will do some manipulations on this AST, and then it will finalize into some other CSS AST, and then it will finally render it back into a file. And this is a tricky bit which I kind of don't understand in modern web. Then how does this new generated file gets included everywhere it should be included? But that's what it does basically. So it compiles CSS into CSS, which is cute. Using plugins as well, which is also cute. And the two capabilities that they want us to know about is that it integrates really well with Autoprefixer, according to them. Again, I didn't, and I don't even plan to use PostCSS, like manually, I will just integrate it with Tailwind to the degree to which Tailwind needs. But they say, okay, we integrate with Autoprefixer. They don't use it as a dependency, as I complain about on the screen, as you can see. And also the second thing that I understand from their marketing is that they're saying, okay, we also have CSS modules out of the box. And I don't know in which CSS standard are CSS modules, but probably they are just simply not yet supported by all the browsers, even modern ones. Perhaps this is the reason. And they say, okay, like we don't need to, you can start using CSS modules today. They probably just create blobs, right? They probably just create blobs. And again, they somehow probably prefix them. Another thing with PostCSS, and I'm not sure, and maybe this is what it's also used for in Tailwind. If I had to guess, I'm not entirely sure. I would guess that it is used to prune the unused Tailwind CSS rules, because Tailwind is huge and you want to have as small bundle as possible. So this is the thing that PostCSS probably enables you to do, to cut all the unused rules to reduce the bundle size. Cool. And the final thing that I figured out how to do is I learned two things. So I learned that npm npm init is the same as npx blah blah blah. And another thing that I learned is that there is a p-npm syntax for this, which is p-npm create, that will route things correctly to whatever generator or boilerplate generator that you have. And apparently boilerplate generators are a big thing in JavaScript community today, right? So you don't need to copy paste your old project like we used to do when we were kids or when we were growing up as software engineers. Now apparently there are many different kind of boilerplate generators, and vite, which is an amazingly fast, blazingly fast tool to build stuff that I love already. I used it for maybe 3 days and I'm in love with it. Funnily enough, it's written in TypeScript, not Rust. So vite comes with React TypeScript boilerplate, which is amazing. My hope was that I will manage to actually write all these files myself. So during the live episode, I managed to write flake.nix. I tried a bit with package.json, but obviously it got overwritten by this p-npm create. Yeah, like I started doing this sort of stuff. I wanted to like write tailwind config and blah blah blah, but then it turns out that when I run p-npm create, it creates all this boilerplate for me, and it's a standard, really it's a standard kind of thing where you have main tsx, which refers to app, and you have app tsx as the integration point. You know, here it has a counter code, also showcases hot reload that vite preview gives you. But most importantly, you can see that, or maybe you can't. Well, you can see that the name of the files is ts something, right? Which means that you can annotate this with, for example, React functional component diamond, you know, like opening and closing triangle bracket, and this will compile. I mean, I can actually prove it. I think it will reformat everything. when I open it, but let me prove it. So I can write colon react fc. Sorry. Lol. That is a little bit embarrassing. I forgot. Oh, of course. Whatever. Yeah, as you see, this works, and I can even prove it. TSC minus b or something. I didn't try, but okay. And let me show you that it actually is not a fluke. Okay, as you see, TypeScript is compiling the files and complains about nonsense. And I can obviously prove to you that TypeScript will catch type errors as well as syntax errors. As you see here, it says that it's from void to GSX element, which is the signature of React functional component, and it's not a string, bro. That's what it tells me, right? So I can just change it back to React-FC, just compile once again. And the magic here is we can actually write verbose to try to understand what it's doing. And it gives this warnings, but the point is that it kind of reads everything. It says projects. There are 3 projects, and that it kind of builds them, but I don't really know how or why there are these 3 files. So this is something for the episode 2. Which I will do later today, and yeah, that's it. That's hyper efficient startups, and see you next time.